Welcome to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share a recent conversation between my admissions colleague, Whitney Kestner, and Mike Lenox, Interim Dean for the Darden School of Business. This audio comes from a recent webinar featuring Mike and Whitney, and in this wide-ranging conversation, Mike shares more about his background, what led him to Darden, his research interests, what's exciting to him about his new role as Interim Dean, and much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. Now, without further ado, here's a conversation between Whitney Kestner and Mike Lenox.
Welcome to everyone. My name is Whitney Kestner. I'm Managing Director of Admissions here at the University of Virginia Darden School of Business, and joined by Mike Lenox, who has recently been named our Interim Dean here at the Darden School. And I'm absolutely delighted that Mike's joining me for this conversation. So I've had the pleasure of knowing him for over 18 years. And so now you all get a chance to really get a sense of who he is and all that he's accomplished and all the things that he's excited to do. So we'll spend the next 50 minutes together. You are welcome to put questions in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer, but also know that I've got a lot of questions and you all submitted many in advance. So with that, Mike, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Very excited to talk to our prospective students here.
All right. We're going to dive in. And so to begin with, can you share with everyone, who are you?
Who am I? Who is Mike?
Very big open question.
So many things that I could cite. I am born and raised outside of Philadelphia, an old steel mill town. For those who are sports fans, that does make me a Philadelphia sports fan. Go Birds. I'm also what we affectionately call a double who, which means I have 2 degrees from the University of Virginia, actually both in systems engineering. I spent 15 years wandering in the darkness. As I like to joke, it really wasn't the darkness. It was good times, but
good learning.
Good learning. Some time in consulting, did my PhD up at MIT, spent some time on faculty at other business schools, but joined here in 2008. So I've been on the faculty now at Darden for going on 17 plus years.
Yeah. It's amazing. We were chatting earlier, time flies, and we've both experienced so much during our time at Darden. So, all right, so you've talked about this path. There's Philadelphia, there's MIT, but Charlottesville, obviously. So what brought you back, and what brought you specifically to Darden?
Yeah, a couple things. First and foremost, the University of Virginia holds a deep place in my heart. I really think it's a special place, having seen other selective universities and the like, but specifically Darden. Darden is unique amongst our peers. Right. And for a number of years, I served as our chief strategy officer. And I always like to joke that it's one of the easiest jobs in the world, because more than really any of our peers, we have a sense of who we are and how we create distinctive value. And that is, we are the world's best educational experience delivered by the world's best faculty with the world's best staff and community supporting that. And we don't take those statements lightly. We invest heavily in our educational mission, our teaching mission, but even more importantly, the community that we build here. We say often it's just simply different here. And again, I've had the experience of being with a number of other universities, and it is truly the fact that it is a special and different community here at Darden.
I couldn't agree more. Well, maybe diving in a little bit there, you mentioned being in that strategy role while also teaching. Can you talk a little bit about that balance and maybe the nature of those 2 roles?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as many Darden affiliates will say, my first love is teaching, and I love being with our students and in the classroom. I have spent the last 17 years in Section B. I like to say I'm a Section B loyalist.
Go Birds again.
Go Birds again. Yes, that's their nickname as well. In the residential MBA program, we have 5 sections. We're not very creative. It's just A, B, C, D, E. But they're very creative in the identities that each of these have. So the B, the Birds have their own song. They have their own mascot. And that just adds to that fabric of
Mm-hmm.
the community. So as a teacher, just being involved in that lifeblood of the school as a strategy professor. But I've been very fortunate over my years to have been called and asked to provide service in any number of ways to the university. So when I first got here, I actually helped run our Batten Institute and served as our associate dean of innovation. So one of my passions is innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology.
Mm-hmm.
I write quite a bit about this. I teach on this, and I've also tried to bring it to the school. In my role as chief strategy officer, which I followed up that first role with, I helped lead part of our digital transformation.
Right.
So I've written extensively about AI and digital transformation, and then how we practice it here at Darden. So this is kind of the next evolution for me, and just so excited to have this opportunity to serve in the dean seat for at least a little while.
Yeah. Well, that's my next question.
Yeah.
But also just kind of wanting to further underscore, I love that you're not just studying and thinking about strategy, but really getting to put it into action for the school.
Well, and that's a funny story. So when Scott Beardsley, our previous dean, was hired, he came from outside academia, and he asked me to help with that. And, suddenly the strategy professor was being asked to do the actual strategy for the school. So it was a very much putting what I was teaching into practice. And I enjoyed every minute of that opportunity.
I can imagine that's especially rewarding, just to have both sides of that. All right. So we mentioned Scott, so recently named the president of the University.
Very exciting.
And then earlier this month, you were named the interim here at the Darden School. So maybe the next question should be, how are you doing?
Yes.
And then curious, you've already brought so much energy. Love to hear a little bit more about what you're thinking for the months ahead.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I was willing to step into this role is because we have such incredible momentum as a school after Scott's leadership and the like. And I want to make sure we continue that momentum moving forward. I used to run track in high school, and you've ever run the relay races, you know that when you do a baton pass, you do it at full speed.
Yes.
You don't stop and hand the baton off. It would be disastrous. And so I feel like, given my background, I can take the baton from Scott at full speed and continue running. And then really the main goal for me over the next 7-8 months is to prepare ourselves for our next dean and to make that baton pass fluid and really continue to propel us forward.
That's great to hear. I mean, there has been so much happening at Darden, such momentum. So glad to hear that we're speeding up into the curve, or, passing that baton and keeping that momentum going. Well, we're super delighted, super excited. There's definitely been just great energy here at the Darden School, and know that you will be an incredible leader as we do move into this next transition. So, all right. So we've talked, you've mentioned a little bit about your first love is teaching. And it's something that is such an important elemental part of the Darden experience. So I'd love if you could spend a little time. I've seen you in the classroom. I've seen you teach. I've heard you talk about it many times, and it definitely, it resonates on so many levels. But for many of our prospective students, it is a different way of learning that they may have experienced in their undergrad. So can you share with us a little bit more about teaching in the case method and sort of what makes this so special?
Yeah, and what we talk about is this idea of student-centered learning, with the case method being the obvious example of how we do this. But though we do modes of engagement beyond case method, various experiments or simulations you might do in the classroom. What we don't do is lecture.
Yes.
And I have some strong feelings about this. I actually was very involved when Coursera launched all the way back in 2012, created a course that's, I believe, the most popular business strategy course on Coursera. And that's a different form of engagement and learning. And my argument would be, if you're spending the money you would spend for a lead MBA, and someone comes in and stands there and it's a one-way dialogue with you of, here's what I know, put a camera on it, record it, and watch it while you're on the treadmill.
Sure. And
in fact, we do some of that in our core strategy course. We have a series of videos that serve as preparatory for coming into the classroom.
Sure.
But that time in the classroom is incredibly valuable.
Right.
And so our attitude is we need to lever that to give the maximum learning experience available to you. So at the heart of the case method, at the heart of student-centered learning, is the Socratic ideal of dialogue and exchange. I know we're going to talk more about AI and its impact on education, but I think this has become even more critical in this day, in this moment that we find ourselves in right now. Yes, you need to learn the basics of accounting and finance and the strategy frameworks we would give you in a strategy course, but that's just the beginning. The fact of the matter is, in the real world, if you will, you have to deal with complexity, ambiguity, uncertainty. Reasonable people can disagree about what's the proper path forward. What we do in the Darden classroom is we create this crucible of an opportunity where you have to conduct an analysis, but then you have to defend it. You have to understand the limits and the boundaries of what you've done. You're going to argue with others about should we do A or B. And so this idea at the heart is how do you justify and move forward on a decision? That's what you'll be doing in the real world. And that's what you do in the Darden classroom every day, 3 days a week, 4 days, or 3 days times a day, 4 days a week. And it's a really powerful way of engagement. And I think as a faculty member, once you've experienced that from our side, you really can't imagine engaging with students in any other way. I half joke that I could probably walk into a Darden classroom, pose a question, and then leave the room, and an hour and a half later, you'd have this incredible, conversation. Now, in truthfulness, we do a lot of work
100%.
to prepare how the dialogue will unfold. We'll have learning objectives and pastures of discussion that we're trying to kind of coach and bring the conversation through. But at the end of the day, it is, as we say, student led. And so we'll get debates going, we'll get different points, and we might travel far afield from where the original lesson plan was for a while and then bring it back again to that discussion. And so that is kind of the secret sauce of what happens in our classroom.
I think one of the things that I have appreciated and continue to through my work is just the relationships that are built amongst the students. And you touched a little bit on Section B, the sections and the camaraderie there. Can you maybe talk a little bit about why that is essential for this way of learning?
And I think it gets to this idea of community that we build. And what we believe strongly is learning does not end in the classroom. Learning takes place, outside in your engagement with each other, in your engagement with the faculty. So our faculty are incredibly engaged with students in the totality. We have something called the Darden Cup, which is a little bit like Hogwarts. We have a series of events where each of these sections are competing. Sometimes they're athletic events. This past week, we had a trivia night. I'm proud to say I did participate with Section B, and we won. We had the best. I don't think it was because of my expertise, but and I wasn't the only faculty member there. I mean, we had dozens of faculty who were involved and participating, and so that idea of a really collective and supportive community. Where it shows up in the classroom, which I think is unique, is we really work hard to create an environment that is conducive to learning. And so it doesn't mean we don't disagree, doesn't mean we debate, but we do so with empathy and understanding, and we're supportive of one another. And so in the Darden classroom, we're there to collectively learn. So a great example of this is we do not allow students to pass out of core courses. So you might be in accounting in your first year, and there'll be a CPA in that room. Now, of course, to the student who has not experienced accounting before, it's incredibly valuable to have those types of students who can reference their experience and the like.
Good teammate to have.
But the real secret is that CPA, they end up learning the material even better and in more nuanced and powerful ways. So again, it's this collaborative learning environment. The other piece I would mention is our learning teams. So before going into the classroom, you will get together with 4 or 5 students to discuss the cases coming up typically the next day. And those those learning teams are engineered, right?
Mm-hmm.
They make sure that there's a diversity of experiences. Again, maybe someone's a CPA, maybe someone worked in tech, maybe someone, was doing Teach for America and has limited business experience. We put them together so they can collectively discuss and understand the cases. So when they come in the next day, they're prepared and ready to participate and be part of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, everyone has something to contribute.
Yeah.
Their experiences, the industries they worked for, the businesses or the organizations, and even those who have non-traditional backgrounds, which, by the way, I find is like 50% of our students have like a non-traditional background. They have incredible things to contribute. I'll just share one example. We often get veterans in our classroom, and you might be talking about leadership, and someone might say, well, when I was a student council president, and wonderful experiences if you've had that.
Right.
And then suddenly the student speaks up and says, I was on the front lines in Afghanistan leading troops in an incredibly dire situation. And it just, you understand that like there's so much that can be learned from one another in that room.
I'm so glad you said that. That's definitely, from an admissions perspective, that's something that we really seek to communicate with our candidates, to have people from all over, all of these different backgrounds. It's essential because you don't want to have a room all of, one training or, coming from one industry. So to have people and knowing that everyone has the things that they are going to contribute to that conversation, to that learning, but then also everyone's here because they want to learn and they want to skill up and they want to prepare themselves for that next thing. So.
Yeah. And I think, again, the collaborative community is really important. Yeah. The Darden classroom isn't one where everyone's trying to one-up one another or prove how smart they are. It really is like, how do we bring everyone up to a certain level of understanding and discussion?
All right. Can we drill down on that? Because it isn't about one-up. And we do get those questions and, sort of people are curious, what is collaboration? I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, no. So as an undergrad at UVA, and this is actually true of all of the University of Virginia, there's a huge emphasis on student self-governance. Yes. So as an undergrad, I was heavily involved with what is called our honor system here. And I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what makes the honor system so powerful at UVA. At the end of the day, it's a collective promise. It's a promise to the students, to one another, and then from the students to the broader community, including their faculty, of upholding a certain standard of behavior. In a digital age that we live in, take something like cheating. If our goal is to try to catch and punish every cheater, it is incredibly difficult to do so. And the technology is constantly outstripping the efforts to leverage technology to find that and the like. But those normative elements, this idea that, hey, we are collectively responsible for one another, is incredibly powerful. So I'll give you an example. I'm one of those sticklers in class. I start class on time and I end class on time.
Okay.
If students are coming in late, I might talk to them. But what's even more powerful is when our section rep, one of the student, will go and talk to that student about being in the classroom, because it's disruptive to everyone else when someone is coming in late. One of the amazing things about the Darden learning environment, and I have not seen this at other universities I've been affiliated with or visited, it is rare for there to be 2 or 3 students out of a 70 student classroom absent.
Yes.
Like, people know they come to class, they're on time, they're prepared, and they're ready for a discussion. That is just not simply true at most other places, where maybe 50%, maybe less, even bother to show up for class. It's just so not what our environment is. And as I always say, if you're going to spend this much money to get this degree, you want a full enriching experience that's going to advance your knowledge. Yes, we all know that the students want the jobs at the end of the day, but that learning is going to be invaluable to you throughout your career.
Yeah. And I think really speaks to when you're engaged in something and you feel empowered, then you're going to take it seriously and be involved and be an active participant. And so, you talk about flipping the classroom, and so you're empowering the students in their education.
Yeah.
So.
It's empowering to the faculty. I mean, I come out of the classroom on a high, that energy high, and I couldn't even imagine teaching at another school at this point. If the students aren't prepared, if they're not showing up on time, if the room is empty. I mean, like those, I just can't even imagine. It's just a joy to be in the Darden classroom.
All right. Well, you've hinted at it a little bit, and certainly I think a question probably on many people's minds, but things are rapidly changing with AI. It's impacting business, our life, our world, certainly higher education. Would love to hear some of your thoughts and how Darden is uniquely positioned in this moment.
Colleagues of mine at another university coined this idea that AI at the end of the day is a prediction machine.
Okay.
Which I think is really accurate. At the end of the day, it is a set of techniques and algorithm to make predictions about the future. Even an LLM is like predicting the next word.
Mm-hmm.
So in a world where prediction gets inexpensive and easy and actually really powerful, what's left for us, humans? And I like this idea of judgment that is distinct from prediction. Judgment takes in a whole number of factors. It takes in that, complexity, ambiguity, uncertainty that I was mentioning before. It takes in the ethical consideration, the institutional considerations, what's happening in society in real time in these incredibly difficult environments that we often face in the business world or more broadly. So what I think is going to happen is that those, what I'll call rote skills that you might have, AI is rapidly replacing those. What's going to be more valued is this integrative capability that I like to call it, how to deal with simultaneously having too much data and not the right data.
Right.
Again, uncertainty and complexity. The Darden classroom, again, is designed to prepare you exactly for that world. And so the ways in which we engage, the way we, in essence, are teaching you to learn become critically important. Because with technology, and I've studied technology for 25 years, you can't keep up with it. Like it's constantly changing. I wrote a book 2 years ago on the digital age that arguably from a technology standpoint was outdated the second it was published, if not maybe before it was published. So you don't come to get your MBA so I know what is the state of the art of LLMs or AI today, because that will be different tomorrow. It is that big picture. How do I step back? How do I engage with a rapidly evolving technology? So you mentioned before this idea of like flipping the classroom that you sometimes heard, especially around when these massively open online courses were popular. We've been flipping the classroom for nearly 75 years at this point. It is becoming even more critical and valuable because, again, the rote learning, go on YouTube and watch a video. You can pick up on certain things pretty quickly there. That integrative capability, that's what we're trying to develop.
No, I think that's especially powerful. And again, it's in this moment, there's so much rapidly changing, and I think people are trying to understand what is going to be that value add, so that judgment element. And we have an incredible track record, if you will, in terms of companies coming here and wanting to hire our students, both in our full-time as well as in our working professional programs. And we hear things again and again, and in this very moment, hearing more around. I think getting to your point around judgment, yes, can use these tools to get this information, but what do you do with this? How does that impact downstream? So can you talk a little bit maybe around how the case method, how Darden is really helping students from communication to leadership to impact?
Well, before I hit that, just on the job front, let's talk about that. With AI, there's obviously this fear of a jobless future. I don't subscribe to that viewpoint. I think, though, what's going to happen and is already happening is AI is going to make knowledge workers much more productive, 10x more productive in some cases. That will mean that we'll need fewer of these elite knowledge workers. So those jobs that many of our students are looking for are going to get harder to come by. I believe strongly, and I think the good news here at Darden is we have done incredibly well in placing our students, in part because they're bringing the skill sets that are needed by whether it's consulting, investment banking, technology companies, or the like. And we are often a primary source for their talent needs. I think we are incredibly well positioned, and we've seen this in our data in recent years, to continue on that trend of being one of these primary employers for these industries, which will probably be shrinking in the number of people that they hire into them. To your point about the broader skill set, again, decision-making under ambiguity, complexity, and uncertainty, but all these other skills, like you said, communication, teamwork that you learn to do in the learning teams, communicating your point. I do a lot of work again with like entrepreneurs, and as an entrepreneur, you will put together a pro forma spreadsheet that makes some forecasts, and it's always going to be, the market potential is billions, and here's how we're going to capture part of that.
Right.
Wonderful. You need to do that. It needs to be technically sound and sophisticated. But when you get in front of a set of investors, that is a beginning of a conversation.
Right.
And don't fool yourself that you will put this spreadsheet together and reveal it to investors and they'll start clapping and handing over money. That is not how it works. They will immediately attack you on all your assumptions, the sensitivity analysis. How are you dealing with uncertainty? Have you thought about tariffs in Europe? Have you thought about, training people in an age of AI? That ability to deal with, again, that complexity, that's what we're training you for. That's what we're giving you the skill set for. Yes, you need to understand how to put that spreadsheet together. But again, that's just the beginning of a conversation. And so we're really giving you this crucible again of preparation for those types of moments. Same if you're an investment banker, maybe making a merger and acquisition recommendation, right? That you do your analysis, but then tons of questions that come in after that. Technology, for sure, there's so much uncertainty, but just even where technology will go. This is something I study and do quite a bit of work on, is disruption.
Right.
And I joke with my students, if I could predict, where technology was going accurately, I'd be, living on an island that I purchased. I actually wouldn't. Actually, I love this job so much. But I maybe, well, now I am the dean, so I could say, like, maybe I wouldn't, ask for a salary at that point. But I really think, what we do is unique and unique for this moment.
Yes. That's great. Well, maybe unique in this moment, and then maybe a more long-term kind of view of the MBA. So I know that many times our candidates are thinking about that internship or that first job after they graduate and thinking about how do they prepare themselves for that. But we know the value of the Darden MBA. It will continue to benefit our alumni 10 years, 20 years, 30 years into their career. Why is that? Can you speak a little bit to the...
Reminded of the old Mark Twain line that something of the effect of the reports of my death are premature, right? The death of the MBA is something that I've been reading about for 25 years.
Yes.
And that it's under stress and other degrees are going to supplant it. It has been the most resilient, important status and certification that we have seen, especially in the business community. There are trends, there are things that come and go. The MBA persists and endures. And I have every reason to believe that will be the case moving forward here. The skills that we provide, the emphasis we provide within an MBA education is constantly evolving.
Right.
It's actually one of the benefits of a case method. We often have these core learning objectives that we're trying to communicate through a case. In business strategy, maybe it's to teach you the old 5 forces framework of industry structure, classic strategy framework. But because we're constantly updating our cases, we can apply it in new contexts. And so the other learning objective might be learn about an interesting industry or technology. And so we're able to keep the curriculum fresh without having to necessarily design a new course on AI.
Right.
No, we'll just bring in a bunch of cases about AI into the curriculum. We have done a bunch of things, just speaking of AI in the strategy course, for example, where we have embraced AI as a technology. My strong belief is our students are already going out into the world, whether it's consulting, banking, and some of these other professions. They're given agent AIs on day one. So if you do not know how to work collaboratively with an AI, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So let's do that in the classroom right now. Sure. So again, the way we structure things actually gives us flexibility to be cutting edge as best we can in every moment.
For sure. No, I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something we get questions around. Sort of a case may be 10 years old, and it meets that learning objective, but you're going to bring in the people in the room, their perspectives, but then to your point too, it's also bringing in new cases. And so keeping it fresh and alive.
And I'm glad you mentioned that part of that student-centered learning again is bringing in others and their viewpoints. Right. So I do a case that at least touches in part on Kodak, right? Which is getting to be an old, story now, going back well over a decade of their failure and bankruptcy in the face of digital disruption. But there's so many valuable lessons to learn. But what we'll do in the classroom, I'll just simply ask the students, have any of you been in a similar situation? And a bunch of hands will go up and be like, oh my goodness, in our company, we were struggling. And then, maybe unfortunately, maybe have gone bankrupt or faced one of these moments. And why was that? And what was happening? And why couldn't you see the future and embrace the new technology? So even in a case that's set back in time, we can bring it forward by bringing in those experiences in the classroom.
Oh, I think that, yes, again, speaking to our prospective students, you all have these great experiences that you will bring to that learning and help your classmates who might not have had that experience in that industry, that role, or that part of the world. So having that diversity of experiences, backgrounds across the board is just so powerful.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
All right, a couple more questions on the academic side. So we talk about the core curriculum here at Darden. Can you share a little bit more about that? What is the core and sort of what's the ethos behind it?
Yeah. And again, I think what I have observed in some of our peers is they have pulled back on their core curriculum, sometimes argued in the spirit of giving you more flexibility to build and craft your own degree. And that's fine. I think there's, looking at faculty and knowing faculty, some of it is that faculty in these schools just don't want to teach core courses. So they pull back. Sorry, a little cynical take on some of our peers there. At Darden, we really have always embraced the idea of a first year core curriculum, an integrated core curriculum. And when I say integrated across the teaching team, as we call them, within a course, and then across the courses in a quarter, and then across our quarters. There's a lot of discussion. I teach strategy, finance is happening. What you've talked about in the finance course? How can we build on it in what we're doing in the strategy course? So it's really this integrated entity that we're creating. So the learnings are again, building across these different areas of study. So it's critical that everyone is going through this experience at the same time. I've already mentioned you can't place out of a course because of that learning experience is really critical. And as we were just saying before, these topics that we have, accounting, finance, marketing, these are forever, right? These are important elements of the business environment. You're going to be learning about them. But the key to the way we do the case method and the way we structure our curriculum is that it becomes this integrated whole that we produce. And again, our goal is that after you get through that curriculum, it doesn't matter what career function is, you have this incredible base of understanding. Because the fact is, you're going to change your job and the organization you work for during the course of your career. The days of when you graduated from Darden and joined a company and that's who you're with for the next 30, 40 years, long gone. Yeah. And so even if, let's say, you're interested in banking and you go into a banking company, your next role, even within the bank, might be one that has a much heavier administrative component where you're managing people, and that's a particular challenge there. Or maybe it has a strategic focus, and you've got to think about some of these bigger picture strategy issues. So having that baseline that we provide really should help you as you navigate your career, regardless of what your specialty and your interests are. Certainly. Now, to be clear, we have a whole second year curriculum that is electives. And that is where you get the opportunity to specialize and focus where your energies may be. We don't have majors in our program. We do have some concentrations, but I always tell students the most important thing is what is the suite and portfolio of courses that are available. And as you can imagine, we have an incredibly robust and diverse set of courses that you can are availed to you, and you can construct in really any way that you choose. So you can kind of pick your journey, and we provide guidance depending on what career path you might be interested in. And if you just want to be a happy wanderer and explore a lot of different interesting topics, that's wonderful as well.
I think that is that foundation through the core, and then the electives giving that opportunity to customize. So I think both are really important. I know I've heard some faculty members sort of talk about that T. The core gives you that broad base, and then the electives allow you to go deeper or to be that happy wanderer and to experience. So what are some of the what are some of the electives offered? All of them are fun.
It's just something to name my own. So I do one on strategy in the digital age. I have a book on the topic, which is kind of all things digital. It's interesting because when I wrote the book, we were talking a lot about blockchain and crypto. And then, of course, now AI with LLM. So I always point out to students, AI has been around for a long time. Yes. When I was an undergraduate back in the early 90s, to date myself, we were learning things like machine learning and neural networks. So the technology was kind of there. We just didn't have the processing power and the volume of data to train our algorithms back then. So I obviously have a passion for that. I don't know, some of the fun ones, Bobby Parmar, who's one of our just absolutely rock star teachers, does a course on improv that he teaches with Ed Freeman, who's also one of our legends here at Darden, which again, you think like, why am I taking an improvisational comedy course while I'm getting my MBA? But I don't think it's hard to see that the skill set of improv translates well again into this complex world that I keep describing here. Completely. So there's another course by Peter Bellamy, Paths to Power, that is incredibly powerful. Infamous in that we were talking about this the other day, how many of us have courses that hopefully have a positive impact on students and they learn a lot. They come out of Peter's course saying, my life has been transformed. And I don't know if I've achieved that in my classroom yet. You're too kind. You're too kind. But, and again, technical courses that are taught by just phenomenal teachers that, again, are getting you beyond just the technical aspects, but to really see like what is the insights that we're gaining. Elena Luscania is another one of our just rock star faculty out of finance, and she can take incredibly complex concepts and distill it in a way that students can really understand and utilize in their everyday work life. So just a phenomenal group of teachers.
Speaking of Elena, do not be late to her class either.
No, she's disciplinarian.
Well, all right. So the electives, you touched on a couple popular ones. We also have some more experiential there. Venture Velocity. So for those entrepreneurs out there, a new one, the ETA, which is really exploding as a possible career
entrepreneurship through acquisition. Yes, very popular right now.
And so another, velocity class, really giving students that opportunity to work through the process, to take their ideas, to, be with the cohort, to learn from each other. So
and I think that's right. Again, we talk a lot about the case method, but I always like to emphasize that, that is the core of how we engage, but not the totality of how we engage. And there are these other really interesting engagements. I obviously, be involved with the entrepreneurial community here, have maybe a bias towards some of those offerings that we have. And we've had literally hundreds of successful ventures started while here at Darden that have gone on and done great things. And it's a great opportunity to do that. And maybe just for those of you who are interested in entrepreneurship and technology, we have an incredible ecosystem here in Charlottesville.
Yes.
We are a burgeoning entrepreneurial ecosystem in itself. So it's a fabulous place to come, here to Central Virginia, if you're interested in starting a business. We haven't talked about Charlottesville. I was thinking about that. And very well, I am a wildly passionate fan of this area, and I can say with credibility, after living in New York and Boston, pound for pound restaurant scene, music scene, and arts scene, the sports amazing.
Depending on the year, maybe.
Well, depending on the year, national championships in many sports. The outdoors, just an incredible, on the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains and Skyline Drive and Shenandoah National Park, just robust. And I guess I'd be remiss not to mention our wineries and breweries. And if you enjoy alcohol, we've got it for you. Sure. So it is this just idyllic college town
Right.
that is of sufficient scale and diversity that we get those cultural artifacts, the sophistication that some of you might, desire in an urban environment. We have that here,
Right.
but we have a scale that's accessible
Mhm.
that you just, rarely see. So I can't
Sure.
speak enough about how
I know.
wonderful it is to live here.
It has definitely been an incredible place, incredible opportunities, as you said. I'd be remiss if we didn't touch upon Northern Virginia. We've got
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
we are the University of Virginia, as
Yes.
we talk about, and so maybe touch a little bit on our presence in the Washington,
Yeah, and I was
D.C.
actively
area.
involved when we were making that decision. It was one of the easiest decisions I think we made as a faculty and as a school. As you said, we are the University of Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and the Northern Virginia environment is just this incredible area. I always said that we didn't move to Northern Virginia and to the DC area because it was a large metropolitan area north of us. It is a distinct environment in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the federal government,
Right.
but all the international organizations, the World Bank, the IMF are located up there. There is a burgeoning tech environment up
Huge.
there,
Yes.
largest concentration of data centers in the world,
Mm-hmm.
AWS headquartered there,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon HQ2, literally a stone's throw away from our Roslyn grounds.
Mm-hmm.
It is a unique and dynamic environment of itself. So our move there about a decade plus ago has been invaluable to us as a school. And we often talk about how Charlottesville's, our global home,
Right.
but Roslyn in DC is our global gateway.
Yes.
And it really opens us up. And we haven't talked about that, but we are a global business school, to be very clear. We're global in terms of our faculty, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
for our student body, for sure. But in terms of our exposure and connections to the world, our alumni are across the world. In terms of even our ways our programs are, we haven't mentioned our global courses that we offer in all of our formats, the opportunities to study abroad, to go on these, in some cases, like 10-day adventures, if you will.
Yes.
To everywhere from Patagonia to South Africa to Asia. It really is a global oriented business school, despite, being here in little old Charlottesville and of course up in DC as well.
For sure. No, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And it is something that is an incredible and essential, again, part of this experience is to have students from all over, but then also to have these opportunities to explore new countries. And so I know the Darden Worldwide and the global residencies for our pro degrees, they're busy planning. Those trips are coming up in March. And so I've got a lot of eager students, and what a meaningful way to experience a new part of the world with your classmates and sort of further build those bonds.
And to be clear, our faculty are going on these trips as well. So, one very popular Darden Worldwide course goes to Australia with Shane Dokalai, who's from Australia, one of our faculty colleagues. And so you're getting an insight into Australia with an amazing faculty member who's from there. And we do that, when we can, across the world. I know Yael has led trips to Israel and, Japan, and really tying in with our faculty expertise is just yet another opportunity to kind of build those relationships.
Right. I want to circle back a little bit on the Batten Institute, but also just entrepreneurship. And another appointment that you had more recently was initiative across the University of Virginia, kind of looking at entrepreneurial. You talked about Charlottesville, but maybe talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial energy here at UVA.
Yeah, and so I created something that helped stand up something called UVA Innovates, which is a pan-university platform for advancing entrepreneurship and innovation. It supports both students' entrepreneurship, but we also have quite a bit of what we might call tech transfer, technologies coming out of laboratories and the like.
Right.
And where that becomes relevant to our Darden students is we have had a number of ventures that have started as technology in UVA labs that Darden students have, some cases become the CEO of those companies or, been involved with them very early on in helping them bring them to market and scale. I've already mentioned Charlottesville itself is this robust entrepreneurial ecosystem. A few years back, we were rated the #1 venture growth community. We were cited as one of the top cities for entrepreneurship. It is part of our lifeblood, and you feel it again in our town. I mean, we're not. I won't try to sell us that we're not a huge metropolitan area, so you
Right.
can know everyone pretty quickly in the ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that actually makes it even more powerful. And we have, for a city our size, we actually have a number of different interesting clusters. We have
Yeah.
clusters in biotech,
Mm-hmm.
in clean tech. We actually are a leader in like solar installations and the like, and a burgeoning gov defense and cybersecurity presence that we have with actual facilities from the federal government that are operating here in Charlottesville. So there's just numerous opportunities in that space.
Yeah. Well, great, Mike. Well, like I said, we've covered a lot of ground, and seeing some of these questions coming in, I think we're hitting on most of those. And so as we kind of wrap up, one of the things that, one of the questions, what is your vision for students who will graduate from Darden? I feel like that was a good one to kind of wrap on.
Well, and it goes right back to what I began with of what we do uniquely, like these transformative learning experience centered on student-centered learning, taught by the best faculty in the world who care and value and are deeply engaged with students and engaged with practice.
Right.
The end result, what comes out of that again, are students who are, maybe I'll call them integrators, which again, as I say, in the age of AI, I think is the most valuable skill set to have. What I sometimes tell students is, if you're really good at the technical aspects of what you're learning in your class, and that's what is like totality of what you have, welcome to middle management.
Yeah.
You're not going to advance very far in an organization. Clearly, part of the Darden experience is developing a set of what we might call social skills: how to work in teams, how to lead, even how to socialize in a social setting is part of the experience. If you do that well, that might allow you to get to a certain degree of success. But at the really refined areas, that won't get you that far. This integrative set that we develop, that's what separates people out. That's what creates CEOs. We create a lot of CEOs out of Darden, people who are able to lead. And we haven't touched upon as much, but I think I'd maybe end on this note. We're also very much known for ethical leadership and understanding our impact on the world. Those skills have always been valuable, but again, are becoming increasingly valuable in our society. Our CEOs and our leaders and our business leaders and organizational leaders are known for their moral compass, for their approach to decision making that engages the broader set of stakeholders, and that's just incredibly valuable. Dare I say that this is what's going to separate us out from the AI in the world, and I think employers value it. They understand that, and again, it's why our graduates often rise up through the ranks of whatever organization or career path they choose, and we're really proud about that. With what we are trying to create, we are trying to create transformational leaders in the world that have positive impact.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I know that our prospective students have really valued getting to hear your insights. Obviously, your long tenure here at Darden, you know this community so well, and it speaks volumes as you are now serving in this interim dean role. So you've already touched on it over these last couple of weeks, but I've really appreciated, sort of joy, finding joy in what we do and sort of having that be our guiding principle in so many ways. So again, thank you so much for your time, for all the work that you do. Thank you all for joining us today for the webinar. And we so look forward to continuing to get to know many of you. So for those who've been recently admitted to Darden, we're super excited to welcome you to Charlottesville or to Roslyn, depending on your format. For those in process, we continue to learn so much through your submission limited applications and through the interview process. And for those who are considering an MBA, I mean, why not? I think I think we've made a great case today. So thank you all so much. We have recorded this. We'll be happy to send the recording out through email afterwards. And once again, thank you so much for your interest in Darden.
And that was a recording from a live webinar featuring my admissions colleague, Whitney Kestner, and Mike Lenox, Interim Dean for the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.